criminal who defied the law and escaped from the toughest prisons, as if fate and coincidence were always on his side. This is the story of the cunning escape. The story begins in India in 2001. There was a young man, 25 years old, named Ashrath Koval, a name that would continue to echo, but only within the world of criminals. He worked in the city of New Delhi as a tour guide and as a thief and a trafficker of prohibited goods, and a priest in a temple at the same time, as if his soul was swinging between 4 different worlds. How? Let us go and discover this multi-talented person. He began with his main job, which was a tour guide in the city, and after a period of time, his name became famous in the city as a professional tour guide, and this particular point led him to the second job he used to do, which was theft, for he used to scam tourists and steal their money, with a cold smile hiding a lurking beast. And despite this, people literally wished for the chance to have Ashrath as their tour guide, because he possessed eloquence and a high skill in attracting tourists to him. He was a magical thread, leading his victims to the trap he had already set with full professionalism. With the end of year 2001, and in one of the days was walking with a group of tourists foreign, and after that, he showed them most of the landmarks.
The market can be overwhelming at first, but it's completely safe. Just watch your step.
Look at all the spices.
Yes, quite a sight, isn't it? Keep moving.
Tourist reaching to the stage, the final from this trip.
These small brown ones are cumin seeds. They might look simple, but they are essential for that authentic curry flavor you are looking for.
Fascinating.
Which is the stage which he will begin in it, by cheating on them and stealing their money. And what was happening is that he was taking the tourists in a tour in the neighborhood Narayana on the outskirts of city New Delhi. And between the houses and the alleys narrow, a gang was standing waiting for him until he comes to them with the tourists, so that they go out and stop the tourists and steal their money, and they pretend also to steal the money of Ashrath, so that the tourists do not doubt in him that he is with them. After that, they were dividing the profits. As for the tourists, they flee from the country, and this plan was applying it continuously with the tourists foreign, because he knows that the tourist does not speak the language Hindi, so he will face difficulty in submitting a complaint against the gang. In one of his trips, and as usual, he took the tourists to the neighborhood Narayana, and it was supposed that he enters one of the alleys, so that the operation of the theft is completed as agreed upon with the rest of the members of the gang. And indeed, the gang comes to immobilize the tourists and steal them amidst an atmosphere full of fear and tension and terror which dominates on the tourists. And in this, while the disaster occurred, for a car stopped and 7 people descended from it carrying pistols. But when Ashrath saw them, he found them that they are not the members of his gang, meaning that it is a gang. Another, called the Gang of Kumari, came to immobilize the gang of Ashrath, and they completed the theft. And here, a battle spun between them in the middle of the street, and this was a behavior stupid from them all, because the battle ended with the death of the gang of Ashrath completely, which made Ashrath surrender and the tourists flee, leaving behind them bodies stripped of the soul on the floor of the alley narrow, and the sound of death still echoes in their ears. The gang of Kumari caught Ashrath and he confessed with everything literally. This deadly mix was weaving the threads of his end in a fast way. The gang of Kumari, consisting of 7 people, and all its members are wanted because this gang trades in contraband, and here he began his job, the 3rd, which is a contraband dealer. So they said to Ashrath, "We will not kill you, but since you are a tourist guide and you know most of the roads and the areas, we want you to work with us and deliver our merchandise to the people, a devilish offer in exchange for the temporary survival." And indeed, Ashrath agreed with a belief from him that it is an interest he brings from it, the money, and he is essentially a thief and a cheater, and it does not differ with him the job which he will work in it. And here we can say that Ashrath got involved and his greed led him towards the abyss, because after a few operations in the trade of contraband, he began to think of expanding the trade. And with who? With the tourists themselves. And in one of the days, he sold a quantity to a tourist in the group the same, and after that, Ashrath completed the trip to the neighborhood Narayana, and the operation of the theft was completed, which proved to the tourist that for Ashrath, he has a hand in the matter and is not just a tourist guide. After the theft was completed, the tourists began to flee, and by chance the policemen passed, and they saw the tourists fleeing and that there is a gang in that place. Ashrath pretended that he is not from the gang, but the winds come with what the ships do not desire. The tourist, when he was robbed by the gang and saw the police present in the place, he confessed that Ashrath traded with him with prohibited materials, meaning that Ashrath is accused also of involvement with this gang, and this was the time, the first that Ashrath was arrested in it. And he was sentenced to prison for a period of 12 years. And they put him then inside Tihar Prison in the city of New Delhi. Tihar Prison is considered the most famous prison in Asia and the biggest prison in India and South Asia. And it is considered also one of the most crowded prisons in terms of the number of prisoners. And inside this prison, Ashrath met many of the prisoners, for he was by nature social, friendly enough to find for himself angles new in the swamp of crime, and this reached him to categories different of the people among them who became a companion for him in his trade of contraband. And among them who learned from him worship, and among them who was stealing from him money while he is inside the prison, meaning that his life went naturally for a period of 2 months approximately in the deadly monotony of the prison before his stupidity intervened once again to turn the table on him. And in one of the days he was in the prison yard, and the guards came to conduct a check on the people who will be released. The prison was crowded, and Ashrath is stupid by instinct. He saw that a group of the prisoners were isolated from the rest, so he had curiosity to know the reason for their isolation in this way. So what he did is that he simply went among them and tried to understand what the matter is, and everyone was happy, and the guards came and took this group completely to the outer yard of this prison, and after that they were released, and who was with them is Ashrath Koval. With the help of destiny, Ashrath went out from hell to freedom. How did this happen? In this way, very easy and without the slightest effort from Ashrath, by pure coincidence, even though it is considered it resembles the Indian movies actually. And this error happened because in year 2001, there were not existing tools accurate used in the detection of the prisoners from pictures or names. And this is what actually happened, for after a month from his exit from the prison, he founded a gang. The least that can be said about it is strange. and so that he avoids what happened in the time. The first, he thought of heading to the temple to take from it a new hiding place for his crimes, and here he began his job. The fourth, there he founded his gang. And after a period simple, he became an assistant to the priest of the temple, and he convinced the assistants and the priest who is in the temple to help him in his trade of contraband, and in exchange for that they get from him money fictional. Ashrath offered to them amounts fictional, which made them be fascinated by the money which he offered to them. So the temple turned from a house of worship to the center of Ashrath for the trade of contraband. In that time, the number of visitors of the temple began to increase, and the strange thing is that most of them are from the youth category, and this caught the attention of the policemen. And in one of the days, Ashrath was wandering in the country, and if the police raid the temple and they saw his trade on its principles, and the disaster is that they found quantities large of the narcotic materials inside the temple. In this time, Ashrath was returning to the temple, and he saw with his eye that the policemen are present, and they have caught the assistants and the priest, and are spread throughout the place completely. And the assistants were arrested, as well as Ashrath, and thus collapsed the throne of Ashrath, made of lies and illicit money. The disaster, the biggest, was when they discovered that Ashrath is a fugitive from the prison fundamentally, and he has a sentence of 12 years, so he was sentenced to life imprisonment as a punishment for him for his actions. Ashrath was imprisoned in one of the prisons of the state of Madhya Pradesh, and he spent inside it a long period without that he finds any way for escape until year 2016. In one of the nights, the prison was undergoing maintenance of the security systems, and inside it more than 50 workers taking off the doors of the cells and changing them, and after that they returned the prisoners inside them once again. And in the midst of this organized chaos, a spark of hope for escape shone in the eyes of Ashrath. One of the maintenance workers entered the cell, which was located at the end of the main corridor of the prison, and here an idea came in the head of Ashrath. He said to the worker, "Why don't we make an agreement with you? I make you wealthy in the meaning of the word. I own about $2,000 and I will not benefit from them while I am inside the prison. So you take the money, you benefit with it, and I benefit with my exit from the prison. All the required from you is that you give me your clothes, I wear them, and you take my clothes and you wear them also. And after that, I go out from the prison disguised in your clothes. And when they discover that you are not a prisoner fundamentally, they will release you. Because we will make the subject realistic, I will hit you a light hit on your head, so you lie down in my place, on the basis that you are unconscious." They exchanged their clothes quickly, without that anyone noticed, and Ashrath returned pretending that he is completing his work, while his soul was dancing with joy with his deception, which surpasses the imagination. And they completed the work, and the workers went out with Ashrath, and they completed the rest of the cells. And before dawn, they completed their work, and went out from the prison. And in the morning of the day, the next, the worker woke up and began screaming that the prisoner hit him and he lost consciousness, and he does not know what happened, and he began to blame the guards for their negligence. And indeed an investigation took place. It ended that the worker is innocent, and the prisoner escaped with the clothes of the worker, and they do not know anything about him, and thus the doors of the prison opened. Ashrath broke free from prison for the second time and left the money in the place he had described to the worker, meaning he actually gave the worker his due. He tried to change his appearance with the intention of evading the police. Indeed, more than 2 years passed with Ashrath living in peace, surviving on the funds he had collected from selling forged bonds. One day, he was walking along a street on the outskirts of the city. On the way, a motorcycle carrying 3 men stopped beside him. They stopped him and stole the money he had in his pocket. For better or worse luck for Ashrath, shopkeepers gathered against the thieves and chaos erupted in the area, ending with the gang pulling out sticks and a battle breaking out in the middle of the street. Within a few minutes, the police had surrounded the entire street. Ashrath feared the police would recognize him, so when he tried to flee, the police grabbed him, mistaking him for one of the bandits. They took him to the police station along with several others, including shopkeepers and the gang members. There, they discovered that Ashrath was actually a prison escapee facing life sentences. Indeed, he was returned to the Madhya Pradesh prison once again. This was the last time Ashrath Koval was seen. Since then, he has disappeared to this day. After all this unique genius in fraud and escaping, interspersed with some stupid actions, and after a series of escapes that relied on luck at times and his genius at others, it would have been natural for him to be caught for the last time through a tight police operation. However, even the manner of his capture was purely due to coincidence and bad luck.
Thank you for following, and don't forget to subscribe, activate the bell, and share your opinions.